Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. It is the second hour of news and views right here on Salam Media. To our Polokwane listeners on One Nation FM, welcome. We do hope that you're going to stay with us for the rest of this hour. And to all of those who joined us on the top of the hour at 8 o'clock, thank you indeed for your company. Next, we're going to be talking about the new marriage bill. What does it entail? What does it mean to us as Muslims? CEO and researcher at Jama-ah, Professor Muhammad Haron, is online to talk about it. These are discussions we've been having on an ongoing basis with Jama-ah and other interested parties. Let's look at what this now means for us as Muslims and, of course, other groups as well. Professor Muhammad Haron, Salaam alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All
Thanks for
right, we're
having me.
looking at this. We're looking at this new bill. We understand that it aims to bring existing marriage laws under one
Mm.
legislative umbrella, following existing family law developing in a fragmented manner, dispersed between three different pieces of legislation. Are we going to get this right? Because it's three different pieces of legislation. Will we be able to tie up the loose ends? And what does it actually mean for us, to us? And also, I'm wondering about us as Muslims. Are we covered in this bill, or
Mm.
is this going to talk to our previous discussions on the Muslim marriage bill?
Yeah, thanks very
Professor?
much. I think lots of questions. Yeah. So lots of questions, and I think we will be getting lots of responses to it. Let me start by saying that I think, as we discussed previously, and as is known by now, that as a Muslim community, we try to get our Muslim marriages recognized. And I think, despite the Constitutional Court's order, things sort of seem to have worked slow, and Al Jama Party somewhat jumped in and tried to work on that when Honorable Hanif Hendricks was able to do so in Parliament using what is referred to as a private member's bill. Now, government, in the meantime, has also been mulling over this matter, and it decided to come sort of to construct what is referred to as a one statute sort of marriage bill. And this is where the challenge is. What we had seen being circulated on the 7th of July, basically last week on Friday, is a bill that the government's um, committee uh, constructed with the hope that all marriages will fall, so to speak, under one act. In other words, there won't be different acts for different communities, but one. And the implication of that is that, and this is where the challenge, where the government will have a major challenge, because it is trying to incorporate civil union marriages as well as Muslim marriages, and maybe Jewish and Hindu and whomsoever basically is included. And as you and I know, and we all generally know, that no community will be satisfied with what the government basically has put forward. It might be a great idea, ideally, so to speak, for the government side, but I think for our communities, it's a variety of issues, because you're not just dealing with one marriage bill. The implications of this bill basically on other acts will also be a concern, whether it is Maintenance Act, whether it's a Divorce Act, whether it's the Children's Act. So all of these acts will inevitably be affected by this. But I think what the government tries to do is to basically just create a structure via which all other marriages will be recognized. uh, our understanding, or one of the understanding that were given to us when the Al Jamaa put forward the Muslim marriage bill, was to basically park that bill, in other words, to set it aside and wait for this one statute omnibus bill, which will have different doors, and one of the doors will be for the Muslim marriages, and of course the Home Affairs Minister, Mr. Aaron Motsoaledi, and as well as our party leader, Honorable Hanifi Hendricks, agreed sort of to park it, not to abandon it, but just to park it for now, and to see what this one statute bill will be bringing to the to the table. And of course, the promise, if I, inverted commas, have been made that if and when this one statute bill comes into effect, it will accommodate the Muslim marriage bill as had been charted out by the party. So there is sort of that understanding, but whether that will really happen in the end, I think it's something that we will see taking place. Just a quick other sort of issue I want to just our lawyers who advise us as a party, they were on it already, and they already found a few concerns in this particular bill. One is the definition of marriage itself, and of course, as you and I know that um, other groups such as the LGBTQT and others have basically had their so-called marriages already recognized by the system, whereas us who tried several years couldn't get it right. And so, in a sense, what they're saying here is that the act, or the bill that the sorry, the act that the government tries to put into place is not going to go down well, as to put it, sort of mildly, partly because many other communities will also want to be clear as to how the government is going to recognize whether it's Hindu marriage or Jewish marriage or African traditional marriages, how it will be able to really overcome these.
Professor, the one thing that comes to mind is when we talk about the act or the bill, depending where we at
Mm,
regarding the marriage laws, is when we look at the Muslim marriages, it's simple, straightforward.
mhm.
When you look at it very technically from a secular point of view, you're looking at
Right.
an out of community agreement in a
Hmm.
Muslim marriage, obviously. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm simplifying it because that's the way I
Hmm.
view it, because I just think it's clean, cut, simple,
Correct.
and straightforward.
Hmm.
Why are we having this challenge in getting it passed? Is it because of the possible polygamous marriages that some of the men enter into? Is it protecting the rights of the second and third wives and their children? Is that the
Hmm.
stumbling block as we see it? But even that, as far as Sharia is concerned, is very
Hmm.
clear cut. So if
Agree.
we can incorporate that into the bill or the act, I
Mm-hmm.
can't see a problem. Or am I
Yeah.
simplifying it way too much?
No, no, I think you sort of correct. I think what had happened, as you know, when Jama-ah sort of put its foot into basically seeing which way it can really rectify the scenario, try to put up a very simple structure, because purely what we purely want, basically as a party, and of course for the community, is to have a fairly simple, structured bill that won't be affected by any spin-offs like your divorce issues or maintenance. These will be dealt with separately under the Maintenance Act or the Divorce Act. So yes, you're right. It was sort of a simple structure with the hope that our marriages are just given pure recognition. Period. In other words, we're not going to sort of involve sort of the legal eagles to sort of use this particular bill to look at sort of other dimensions. So from that angle, the second point quickly, just to pertaining to this, when you speak about the polygynous sort of nature of it, I think that even in this act, sort of that had been proposed, had been sort of short-circuited, partly because we just want any monogamous marriage, Muslim marriage, to be recognized. When it comes to the polygynous one, that will then fall under a different act, so that at least those who want to enter into a second marriage or third marriage, they will have to consult, of course, in some cases, as has been stipulated, consult their first wife or second wife, whatever the case may be, and in that way sort of ease the task for those individuals, or maybe challenges, if one can put it a different way. But just coming back to the point that you made, yes, it was fairly easy structured. And the question that you raised, why? I think what we seem to understand is that the government felt that they realize that now that Muslims have sort of put forward their quest, they should rather come up with something that will incorporate everyone else. In other words, all communities, wherever they may be. But this is exactly what the challenge is. I mean, now that we want ours to be
Absolutely.
recognized, all of a sudden the government basically comes up with sort of this idea. Whilst, and as we indicated early on, that we giving the government this opportunity because the party has now parked it for a moment and say, okay, Mr. Motwaledi, what are you going to sort of put forward? And this is what they basically did, circulated. So we sort of expecting various comments by before the 31st of August. But now, in the interim, and we were told this, that the Home Affairs will be issuing a circular in which it will indicate that our marriages as Muslims would be recognized. So, in other words, the circular is not sort of an act, it is just a circular reinforcing the fact that the quest that we have made to have our marriages recognized will be sort of in place. And so any Muslim couple who gets married can automatically, of course, get their certificate, the African certificate of marriage as well, after having performed the nikah in the masjid or in the hall or wherever else. So in that way, that will happen. But unfortunately, up to now, as far as we know, there hasn't been any movement on in that regard, and this is where we have a bit of concern. But be that as it may, I think coming back to the point that you made, yes, it was simple, but unfortunately, it's now complicated by sort of these other developments.
Um, I'm
Mm,
also wondering if a government goes ahead with this, with the marriage laws under one legislative umbrella,
mhm,
and as simple as we believe that Muslim marriages are,
mhm,
the way we conduct them, and in cases of multiple wives, and
mhm,
if the husband does pass on,
mhm.
that the children of the other marriages are also equally taken care of.
Of course, yeah.
Um, does that then mean that the new marriage law, as which they're currently working on, would supersede? Let's assume all of this is not taken into account
Mm.
by government. Would the secular law then supersede Islamic rulings?
Um, Good question. I think the idea is not to, well, from the understanding that we're given, let's put it that way, that it won't supersede, because what will happen is that the Muslim marriage or the Hindu marriage will be incorporated into this. In other words, this one statute will act as an umbrella, but there will be different doorways into it. And one of the doorways is for the Muslims, another for the Hindus, another for the Jews, and so forth. And in that manner, it will. But this is exactly where the challenge is. I mean, one cannot construct something and oversimplified thinking that one can get it right within 1 month, or a few months, or a year. It will, one is of the view that it will take a bit longer, and this is where we as Muslims have a challenge, because our issue has been on the cards not just now, but for 3, 4, 5 decades, and yet we have struggled to just get basic recognition, which has been simply structured now in the PMB, in the private members bill. But so in a sense, one wouldn't want to say that the government is trying to divert the whole issue, but I think, as we had said earlier on, it's complicating matters now for us. In other words, we are being stalled a bit unless the circular comes out to clearly sort of clarify the scenario. But I think, as we said, the challenge is on. The challenge is on, and various communities will basically have their sort of say in this regard, because it's not as simple as it might appear just to have a one statute marriage bill. I know. I mean, maybe whoever the individuals are, the legal team is in terms of advising, but I think it is not as easy as the team might have it in their minds. So
Professor,
yeah,
Mhm.
sorry, yeah, carry on.
I do know. Sorry for the interruption. Do you just want to
No, no.
finish that train of thought?
Mm, mm. Sorry, yeah, no, no. I just want to say that I think the team itself. I mean, as you and I know, we we might have a grand idea of this sort of bill incorporating and covering everyone, but I think this is where definitions get problematized, because you and I know that for us as Muslims, getting perform nikah in a masjid or in a hall, wherever the case may be, is a very sacred issue. But of course, for other civil union marriages, it's not a major issue, and so they are, the understanding of the whole system, marriage system itself, and of course plugging into a secular constructed sort of scenario is sort of is a problem.
I'm wondering how much of a challenge this is as far as we as Muslims are concerned, knowing also that Al Jama has put in a lot of hard work regarding the Muslim Marriages Bill. Um, and what happens going forward, how much of a challenge is this going to be? Obviously, government has asked for submissions, recommendations,
Right.
etc. So
Mm,
it's still going to be a while before we see the final product. But how much more
agree.
work do we have to put in? And does that mean all of the hard work that Al Jamaa has put in up to now may just end up being meaningless? I hope not.
Well, I hope not too, because I think it's a major concern for us. That's why we basically hope that if the if if the government legal team can get its act in order, in other words, have this sorted, which again, as we had mentioned early on, it's not going to sort of be done within the next 2 months or next 5 months or half a year. It's going to take much longer. So I think we do have challenges on the horizon. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a concern. But like we said early on, perhaps maybe the circular that was promised by the Home Affairs Department will basically do the trick, so to speak. In other words, will help us to just overcome that particular challenge. In other words, it will basically state that all Muslim marriages are now recognized. We are just waiting for the one statute sort of act to be sorted, agreed upon by all parties, all interested the stakeholders, and in that way sort of move forward. So in other words, if that circular is out, at least there's something that gives us that support. That is sort of part of the whole process. The other is sort of as you know, that we also brought about changes, amendments to the Maintenance Act as well as the Divorce Act. And interestingly, the Divorce Act has now been approved with the recommendation that had been made by the party, because here we're looking in the interest of the minors, we're looking in interest of asset distribution after death and so forth, so or divorce. So all of these are well, some of these are put in place, but as we had already indicated, that there are other acts that also have to be amended in the sort of process, because it's not only sort of these that had been amended, the others still waiting in the queue. So it's a bit of a long process, but I think essentially, as you and I would, if our Muslim marriages just recognized, publicly made, issued, by the Home Affairs and other departments, I think then we're on the road. It is just that all of these other issues will have to be sorted out along the way, but not slowed down, but to be fast tracked in the interest of our communities.
Okay, my final question then, Professor, is we talk about the circular, that if
Mhm.
that circular is published, forwarded on to Al Jamaa and the rest of the role players that have called for this Muslim Marriages Bill, hopefully that will be coming shortly, sooner rather than
Mhm.
later. Do you still believe that we as Muslims should be making comments regarding the marriages in South Africa, the changes for, there's big changes afoot for marriages in South Africa?
Mhm.
Or do we just sit
Well,
tight till we have the circular in hand?
yeah, no, I think we sort of, it is important for us to have an eye on it, partly because there would be implications for us, perhaps not necessarily sort of, what's the word? Uh, there might be, like, for example, as we had mentioned, our lawyers, our sort of legal advisors basically said, there's a concern regarding the definition of marriages. So we will just have to return to those definitions and see that it does not in any way have implications for us. So as a Muslim community, so yeah, I think it's a matter of the we need to put our comments forward, because it is, of course, we are looking not just for us as Muslims, but also for all the other communities. But we want to be certain that our concerns as a Muslim community have been tabled and are there and are considered, and not just brushed over or sidestepped. Because if that happens, then it becomes again a further struggle. So, and we don't want whatever efforts had been made in the past from earlier stakeholders, right up to the Constitutional Court decision, as well as Al Jamaah's efforts, really to sort of to go to waste. I mean, we cannot afford that. Lots of money has been spent, lots of time, lots of energy, and so we want something positive for us all.
Inshallah. We have a comment
Inshallah.
from a viewer and a listener. Let's share it with you and then we can
Mm.
wrap up. Um, let's see. Assalamu alaikum. It's from Farhana Ismail. Thank you indeed,
Uh-huh.
Farhana. She is, I think, an attorney or an advocate, not sure. Farhana is saying for us legal practitioners, for me being in practice for 20 years, we
Mhm.
are aware of the actual practicalities that we face in court and the interpretation of South African law, let alone Sharia laws. The ultimate
Mhm.
effect, let's just get the full message on screen. I have something blocking the message here. Farhana,
Now I
just give
can
me a
see the whole.
moment. Let me get the full message on screen. There we go. Let me start again.
Yeah.
For us legal practitioners, and Farhana has been in practice for 20 years, we are aware of the actual practicalities that we face in
Mhm.
court and the interpretation of South African law, let alone Sharia laws. The ultimate
Right.
effect for such recognition means that we will open the door for our courts to interpret Sharia laws, which must never happen. Brilliant
Agree.
point. It
Hmm.
will have disastrous consequences.
Hmm.
That is a very, very important issue she raised. Your
Agree.
thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I mean she's correct, and of course we don't want that to happen. This is the reason why we also try to qualify the whole issue of Sharia law and its understanding, and we want only individuals who are qualified, in other words, from within our Muslim, like your sort of Muslim lawyers who have been trained in Sharia studies. Those who are muftis, they have to play a very critical role in the whole process, and they will have to come on board. I think in no ways can they be sidelined or sidestepped, because after all, they have been trained in the arena, and this is where government sector, particularly the legal sector, will have to give recognition to those individuals who have been trained in these areas. Uh, of course, as we know, Islamic studies is a broad sort of area, but we are talking about those who are trained in Sharia studies, not in Da'wah studies or in other
Absolutely.
related sort of areas of. So yeah, we fully agree with the observation.
And I would still like to unpack so many more questions, but we've run out of time. Inshallah, till the next time,
Mm.
as always, we will
Inshallah.
talk some more. And we look
Mm.
forward to hoping that, as far as the Muslim marriage bill is concerned, or the circular that we are awaiting, will be in our favor as Muslims
Indeed.
and the Muslim Marriages Act, inshallah. Till the next time, as
Inshallah
always,
ta'ala.
salaam alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for the opportunity. All the best, inshallah.
That That was Professor Muhammad Haron. He's from the Al Jama Party. Of course, we're talking about a very, very important issue here, the Muslim Marriages Bill, and of course, the new marriage bill and what that will entail and how it would impact, if at all, on Muslim marriages. Farhana Ismail, shukran very much for your input onto the show this morning. Much appreciated. A very, very valid point indeed. It is exactly 9:38 News and Views on Salam Media. Next, we are going to be talking to Zakele Madela, energy expert. We're going to be looking at the update on progress of the Energy Action Plan. Hopefully, there's some good news on in that area as well. Please stay with us.